We are happy you've tuned in. Welcome to another episode of What's Next? Living Longer, Better, Smarter. I'm Fred Fishkin along with Mary Furlong. Hi, Mary.
Hi, Fred. We have another fun topic in store today.
We do, taking the mystery out of family history. This episode is made possible by Vivid-Pix.
Vivid-Pix is all about making it simple to relive your memories. This includes scanning or downloading photos and documents to create your family history, fast, easy, and affordable software to improve these images, and various education to help people do more. With Mary and Fred, we look forward to sharing with you on an ongoing basis many new ways to live longer, better, smarter, and not let your memories fade.
Thank you, Rick, and we'll hear more from Rick a bit later. Mary, when it comes to genealogy, family history, where else would we want to turn but to the people who created the longest-running genealogy podcast anywhere? Drew Smith and George G. Morgan created the Genealogy Guys podcast way back in September of 2005, nearly 17 years ago. And Drew is here with us. Hi, Drew.
Hey, Fred. Hi, Mary. Good to be with you.
Hi, it's so great to have you with us. And you were really ahead of your time. Your podcast goes back 17 years. So tell us what happened. And there weren't many podcasts around, and you're getting a lot of traction, right?
No, we are getting a lot of traction. Our podcast host had only been around for 10 months when we started with them as a podcast to be hosted on their service. What happened was that I was at the time, this was before my current job where I'm a librarian at the University of South Florida. I was actually an instructor in the USF School of Information teaching library science students. And most of this is distance education. And so I don't know if you knew this, but with distance education, unfortunately, the faculty get lower evaluations than faculty that teach face-to-face. And of course, that's concerning because we want to have good evaluations from our students. And so I think the big difference was that there was, you have less of a connection. If all you see with your instructor is what's on a computer screen, words, and no voice and nothing else, then you don't feel as connected and you don't enjoy the course as much. And so you give it lower evaluations. So I was looking at ways to improve my evaluations for distance education. And one of those was suggested that I do audio recordings of myself speaking that my students could listen to. And that led me to discovering podcasting and I said to George, George, podcasting is this new thing and nobody in genealogy is doing it. We could be the first. And so we started it out, not knowing what we were doing, but thinking it could be a lot of fun in that September. And by gosh, we've decided to keep with it all these years.
So I find this fascinating for a couple of reasons. First of all, I share USF in common with you because I was a professor at the University of San Francisco, though now I'm at Santa Clara. Same colors, incidentally.
I know, gold and green, yes.
And you have a gerontology school there at USF, which is quite good. And I've spoken there. And then, of course, I'm in the course of my teaching, I understand what you're saying about this diversification of modalities that we use to reach the students. And a lot of times people come to Fred and I, and they've watched every single podcast. So podcasting is so global. But do you think the pandemic had an impact, perhaps for so many people separated from families, and maybe time to find new hobbies? So did family history go up then?
I think it did. Certainly it had an impact on the genealogy community. Now, the downside, if you would call it that, might be that what happened was that meant the conferences really couldn't happen. They couldn't happen face to face. And there are normally every year before the pandemic, there were several national genealogy conferences and international conferences. So certainly some in Great Britain and other places. So those couldn't really go on, at least not the way they normally would. And And the other thing that was at first negatively impacted was local genealogy societies. They couldn't meet in their usual places. They weren't even allowed to. Maybe they met in a local public library, and the library said, well, we can't allow any use of our auditoriums during the pandemic, at least not at first. But there was, Mary, a big upside, because as societies and conferences realized they had to function somehow, they reached out using tools like Zoom and other tools of that nature to hold their meetings. And so they went virtual, and many societies did that. And guess what? They discovered they could attract members from everywhere. I mean, first of all, instead of just people that lived in the area, the members could be people that lived in other parts of the world that had ancestry from that place where the society was. And they became members and started attending. And of course, you would understand, a lot of people can't get to their local genealogy societies for health reasons, because they're taking care of a family member, all kinds of reasons to get in the way, but they can attend a virtual meeting. So in that way, the pandemic has made societies stronger and better. And even now, as they are moving back toward some face-to-face meetings, I think they're going to go hybrid. They're going to go virtual as well as face-to-face. That's exciting. And I think anything that helps build that community of genealogists beyond just the people that can meet face-to-face, that's terrific. And to follow up what you also said, if I may, yes, people found they had maybe more time. They were not stuck commuting to jobs. That's extra time that they could spend doing something else. And some of them looked for hobbies that meant they could do it from home. And there's so much genealogical research you can do from home. So many people went that direction.
But it's an anchor passion for older people.
Absolutely. Absolutely.
Drew, I was going to say that this community has, I think, largely been online anyway, hasn't it? I mean, the days of going to the library to start researching your family history are, I don't know if they're long gone, but they're somewhat in the past anyway.
Well, you're right that the first experience people have now, even if it's with their library, is their library's website. And of course, libraries have had to adapt over the years as things have moved online. You're right. Their first experience is not visiting the library, typically talking to the librarian face to face. It's now looking at the library's website, seeing if there are any free resources that the library provides, and then maybe eventually going to the library when when they're further along and they need some additional help. But you're right. Genealogy has been, I started with seriously researching my family in 1992. And my background is IT. I have been online since the 80s for sure, with email and with mailing lists. And yes, when I got involved in 1992, I found that there were a lot of online communities for genealogy. There was CompuServe, there was America Online, there was Prodigy, Delphi and Genie were two of the others, Genie, Genie. And those were all in existence already. And you're right, there were bulletin board systems that people could communicate with, and mailing lists. The first mailing list, I believe, for genealogy, Roots L, has been around since 1987. And as you might imagine, then there were a lot of online genealogists forming this online community. So it's true. The community has been online a long time.
You just went through the internet's ancestry for us.
Yes, yes.
I have to say, because yesterday I was upgrading to an Apple Watch, and they asked me my email, and I said Furlong and AOL. But I remember when Steve Case brought together CompuServe, America Online, and I've kept that address because he knitted those three groups together. And SeniorNet, my first company, was the first social network.
Yeah.
We were on Delphi was the.
Yeah.
If I remember. But your IT skills are so needed today, I'm sure. Yeah. And you're right about this. So what some of our audience might want to know, where do they start?
Well, sure. And generally, what I always tell people, what most genealogists who have done this a while tell people is you start at home. You start with yourself. You start with your immediate family members. You talk to everybody who's still alive. You talk to them about what they remember about the family. You find out if anyone's got material like photographs, of course, and any other documents in the home, your home, their homes, cousins' homes. There's so much stuff that we have at home that we start with, and whether it's, again, the memories we have of our family and the documents we have. And then you kind of start getting into, well, okay, what are the records that are available to me for doing research? And much of this, by the way, I know, we want to talk about how much is this going to cost me to do all this stuff. Much of this is free. Whether it's free provided by the government, like through the National Archives and the Library of Congress, whether it's free provided by your local public library through their subscriptions, whether it's free provided by Family Search, which is part of the Church of Jesus Christ of Latter-day Saints and is provided free to everyone, not just church members, but everyone, that you can go on and look at records. And we're talking records from around the world, not just the United States, but everywhere there can be records. So much of that is online now and is being added to as we speak. Every week, every couple of weeks, more records go online. So you start at home and you branch out literally from there.
How popular is this today? I know there are different levels of involvement that people have, but is there a way to quantify how many people are interested and consider this a hobby?
Well, there are probably there have been surveys done by companies and they keep the results of those pretty close to the chest. So I'm not privy to those numbers. I will say this, the largest conference that's been held in recent times is Roots Tech, which has been sponsored by Family Search, and they have had over 1 million attendees. This is a virtual conference. So that's around the world, but it still gives you a great idea of how big this is. I mean, when you've got in the United States alone probably well over 500 to 1,000 genealogy societies, and each society probably has anywhere between 50 and 150 members, depending on what it is. And those are just the people that join a society. So yes, it is big. It is a huge hobby. It's the kind of hobby that it doesn't matter. You don't have to have a green thumb and do gardening. You don't have to be good in the kitchen with cooking. You have a hobby here where anyone can do it. And as a result, and everybody has an ancestor. Everybody has ancestry. I mean, small a ancestry. We all have that. Therefore, we all have some interesting stuff to research. So it's a really popular hobby.
I bet Henry Louis Gates and Finding Your Roots on PBS has had a big impact, as have the DNA kits that are out there that people use.
Oh yeah, DNA has been a game changer, seriously, because, and partially also because Ancestry itself and later 23andMe have done so much advertising. Ancestry, of course, does a huge amount of advertising on TV. And they, added the DNA testing kits, and people thought, oh, that's cool. I can just, spit into a tube and send it in, and they're going to tell me a little bit about my family background. And that's been very, very popular. So we've got, even in the Ancestry.com DNA database, there are well over 15 or 20 million test kits that you are being compared against. And 23andMe has another 5 to 10 million at least. So we're talking a lot of people have sent in a lot of spit.
That happens.
I know a few people who've discovered relatives they didn't know about.
Yes.
Sometimes are there hit surprises?
There are a lot of surprises. And I always warn people before. Now, DNA testing is fun. And of course, most people take it because they think it's going to be a lot of fun. And it is. But you have to be at least aware of the repercussions, because yes, if you didn't know that great aunt so-and-so gave up a child for adoption, if that's a family secret, this DNA testing might reveal secrets like that. And I myself, even though I found out I had a new second cousin because one of my great uncles had a child outside of wedlock. And and I'm related through DNA to a descendant of his through the other person. So yes, there are surprises. Some are welcome. Some people love having new relatives, new cousins. Others, not so much. It might cause some family disruption. So don't take a DNA test if you're not willing to deal with whatever might come your way.
How far back have you gotten? I guess people like to compare that.
Yeah, and that's not an easy cut or dry question either. You know, I have done research on my own back a number of years, depending on which branch of my family, to the 1800s and late 1700s. But once you get back to a certain point, you sometimes link up with other published research. Other people have, over the last 150 years, have written family histories, and you may find you're connected to one that has already been researched further back. For example, one of the lines that I work on a lot, it's the Bodie family, Boddie or Bodie, and I make the remark that I know where all the bodies are buried, and so, but the Bodie family came into the United States in the early 1600s in Isle of Wight County, Virginia, from England. So if the research that's been done by others going back to England is correct, then I do know something about my ancestry, at least back to the 1500s. And there are a lot of good records out there that will take you back to the 1700s, 1600s, 1500s. After that, it gets a little tougher. The records are not as prevalent. And of course, we're talking here European ancestry. And of course, people that have ancestry from other parts of the world may have better or worse luck, depending on what the records are that they can find.
Well, photographs can be a big part of our family histories. And our friend Rick Voight from Vivid-Pix is joining us to talk about something new. Hi, Rick.
Hey, Fred, how are you today?
Well, it is great to see you.
So yeah, we continue to advance the different product offerings that Vivid-Pix brings to market. And we announced a couple of weeks ago something called a memory station. And one of the things that we strive to do is to make capturing both the photographs and documents as well as the stories easier. And that's what Memory Station does, is that literally you can press one button on a scanner and of course give your pics and documents the Vivid-Pix fix with one click too.
Well, describe for us what that consists of.
So what we did is we've worked with various business partners through the years. An example would be File Shadow. And File Shadow is a company that allows automatic integration with Vivid-Pix in order to upload and archive your photos. And we also integrated with Fujitsu. And Fujitsu is actually the largest scanning company in the world. And so we integrated with Fujitsu in order to leverage their SV600 scanner. And we looked at many different scanners by many names that you would expect. And there are a number of things that can go wrong when you scan. Oftentimes in genealogy, you'll see light being too bright in the center of an image and then it will shade out on the outsides. And one of the things that we liked about the Fujitsu scanner is it actually keeps a steady multiple beams of light across the entire surface area. So you overcome some of those challenges. Two, if somebody is looking to be able to, say, scan a photo album page, and if you're needing to pull out individual pictures from the photo album page and put them into a flatbed scanner or something, that can damage a photograph. And so we didn't want to head down a flatbed scanner path. Also, flatbed scanners are kind of a pain in the neck to open and close. And then three, you're dealing with your most treasured memories. So if you're using a sheet-fed scanner and you're just loading up a bunch of photographs, you run the risk of damaging those photographs. So we took into account quite a bit of challenges and tested diligently the SV600 and formed this relationship with Fujitsu.
So with this is actually taking an image of photos that are laid out flat underneath it, right?
Yeah, correct. And thank you for the clarification there. So you're literally able to, so it's an 11 by 17 pad that you put down on a table or on a desk. The scanner is then able to sweep across the top, the light across the top of all those images, and it notates whether in fact this was a single image or multiple images. And if it's multiple images, then it'll break the individual images into different files, which is great for you to be able to do more with those images, whether a photo or document. And now you have a digitized in best resolution 600 DPI JPEG in order to be able to do more with it. So Fujitsu did a wonderful job thinking about a number of the things technologically as well as use case, the things that people need.
Easy is one of the big benefits, right?
Yeah, and that's thank you, Mary. And that's one of the things that we really strive to do at Vivid-Pix is people are busy. People are willing to adopt technology, but technology should make life easier. And so if I can press one blue button on a scanner and have all these things happen automatically, that's a wonderful thing. And then now that I have all those digitized images, if I can press one button on software in order to make all of those images either much more clear from a photographic perspective, bring color back into focus, back into color balance, contrast of a black and white, or more legible with a document, and by running it through Restore, that makes life a whole bunch easier.
What's the vision for how and where people will be able to use the Vivid-Pix memory stations?
A number of places. So for instance, we've installed in a couple of commercial environments, in the Thrive Center as an example. So the Thrive Center sits on the University of Kentucky Louisville campus. And this is a technology testing facility as well as a place where a lot of senior living type of people are able to learn about new technology. So we've been installed there for 3 years, and we installed the station in there a number of months ago. It can also be, as Drew was talking about, within public libraries. So for instance, at Allen County Public Library, which has the largest genealogy center in the public library, we've got the scanners, the stations set up there. So the patrons can come in and bring their own images in or take things off the shelf within the genealogy center and scan them right there. We're also going into senior living facilities. I'm actually sitting in one of them right now in Florida. And it's a wonderful way for residents to be able to have additional services provided to them by where they live. And then lastly, it's a very reasonably priced solution. So it's easy for people to bring it into their homes too.
And once you've digitized these photos, you can share them with the family, which is a big thing, right, Drew?
Absolutely. Because family history can accidentally turn out kind of dry with just names and dates and places. What really makes it live is when you've got photos of your ancestors to share. That really makes it something that everybody wants to look at.
And a face can sometimes bring up memories from your childhood, and then you start thinking and tracing back other relatives.
Yeah, genealogists often end up with a lot of photos they've inherited from different branches of their families, and they don't always know who everybody is. If they can get those photos up online, shared with some cousins, the cousins might go, I know who that is. That's my grandmother. So it's really nice when you can share these photos and figure out the family members.
So for more information on the memory station, people can head to vividpix.com. That's vivid-pix.com/memory station. Thank you so much for joining us, Rick.
My sincere pleasure. And thanks for having us. And Drew, it's always great to see you.
Thank you, Drew and Rick. It was a great session.
For Drew, people can head to genealogyguys.com. And I think I want Drew to spell that so everybody gets it right.
Yeah, because one of the things new genealogists have to learn is how to spell the word genealogy. So yes, it is GENEALOGY, guys, and in this case, .com. Yep.
Thank you so much to both of you.
Thank you.
Mary, before we wrap up, we again want to mention that our hearts go out to the people in Ukraine, the refugees, and the people in neighboring countries who've shown such wonderful compassion in providing assistance.
And there are many ways we can all chip in. We have some of them listed on our website.
Well, Get Set Up, for instance, has a session scheduled for 1 o'clock Eastern Time on Friday, and it's titled How to Support Organizations Helping in the Ukraine Crisis. You can get information at getsetup.io. They'll cover legitimate organizations supporting Ukraine and how to donate. We invited some of the great people at World Central Kitchen to join us too. You may have heard about them. They were founded by chef and humanitarian Jose Andres following the earthquake in Haiti back in 2010. They could not join in the podcast because there's just no time with all that they're doing to provide thousands and thousands of meals, the total over 1 million now, to those in need, to the refugees in Poland and even into Ukraine they've been going. The website for more information and maybe to help is wck.org.
It's so inspiring. We have clients who have Ukrainian programmers, and they are actually fighting during the day and programming at night because they want to preserve that IT sector in the Ukraine. So let's help make this part of our family history to give and to help this effort too.
Wonderful, Mary. We want to thank our sponsor, Vivid-Pix, for helping to make this episode possible. And thanks to all of you for watching or listening. Remember, you can find us and also the new Longevity Deal Talk at maryfurlong.com/podcast.